Good afternoon, baseball fans and Royal fans, and welcome to another edition of Sports Talk with Rags and here in season 3, episode 12. And we are joined here by former Royals second baseman number 20, Frank White. Frank, how you doing this
Um,
afternoon?
I'm doing great, Rex. How you doing today?
Hey, I'm doing great. I appreciate your time. And before we start talking about the '85 season and winning it all, let's start at the beginning. What was your interest here with playing baseball at the high school level and having an interest to play at the next level?
Well, interesting, Rex. I didn't play high school baseball. We didn't have it.
Mm,
I played about 35 games in the summer, and I was 19, and pretty much thought my dream of playing in the major leagues was all said and done. And Ross had this baseball academy that they were trying out for. They wanted to I think Mr. K, when he bought the team, he was really exploring different ways to find talent
mm,
rather than just go through the normal draft process. And drafting really wasn't that sophisticated at that time.
right,
This is like 1970,
right.
and then I heard about the tryouts, and I went to my boss and I asked him for a couple of days off so I can go try out, and that was hard for me to do, but he didn't hesitate. He said, "Yeah, go ahead and try it," and I went down and my first tryout camp ever.
Right.
300 boys out there, and you running and throwing and doing everything they want you to do. And at the end of the day, you go home not knowing what's going on. So I got another call to come back a second day, and I did a lot of agility stuff, a lot of mind stuff, like, hey, here's this deck of cards, put all black on black, red on red as fast as you can, that kind of thing. So then after that day, the next thing I knew, Mr. Kaufman's chauffeur pulled up in my neighborhood in a big blue limo, and all the folks came out, and the chauffeur got out and knocked on the door, and he said, "Hey, Mr. Kaufman wants to talk to you." And I said, "Okay." I said, "Where is he?" He said, "He's in the car." I said, "Okay, great." So I go out to the car. All my friends and neighbors are all around this car, and I open the door, and he's not in there. I said, "Where is he?" He said, "Well, he's on the car phone." I said, "I had no clue what a car phone was." 1970. And so I got in the car and sit and talk with him a little bit. And he said, "I want you to go to this experimental baseball school." And I said, "Well, Mr. Kaufman," I said, like most people, how much is it going to pay? Because I was working,
Mhm.
I was making at that time $100 a week seemed like a lot. And he said, "Well, I was married, had my first child at that time." And he said, "Well, it's going to pay $50 a month, room and board." And I said, "Well, I don't think that's going to work." So, and then, I thought he would come back and say something like, "Well, we can give you more or whatever." He came back and said, "Well, it's not quite $50 a month." He said, "It's $48.50 after taxes." So then we kind of went back and forth a little bit. But then what he did was, I lived at 29th and Olive, which is about 8 blocks from the old stadium, Municipal Stadium in Kansas City.
Mm.
And so he gave my wife a job in the ticket office there at the stadium, and then she moved in with my parents, and then I went on to the baseball academy. And that's how I got into it.
Right. Okay. Yes. And early '70s, you went up through the minor leagues, and then in June of '73, made your major league debut.
I know that was pretty exciting. I tell people how quick it was because I was a month from turning 20 years old when I went to the academy,
Right.
and I was in the major leagues at 23, mainly because I could play third, short, second, and I really realized that I was a good athlete at the time, but I just didn't have the formal training that a lot of kids get today with lessons and things like that, travel teams. So by being in the academy, I could work out 6 days a week, and I learned the fundamentals of base running and fielding and those type things. So that's why they took me to the major league as a utility guy and not as an everyday second baseman. And at the end of the 1972 season, I just came out of Double A, end of August. Back in those days, we had to work in the winter,
Right.
and so I couldn't find a job. So Mr. Kaufman's chauffeur came by and picked me up, and he took me to the Union Hall, and I got a union laborer's card. And at that time, they was building Royal Stadium. So
Mm.
from the beginning of September to spring training in April, I worked on the stadium.
Oh.
So it was really kind of cool to be able to do all those things there. And then in April, I go to spring training, and then in June, I'm actually playing my first game in the stadium after going through a winter of saying, I wonder if I'm ever going to play here. You just don't know. And so I went from helping build the stadium to playing 18 years in the stadium. And now in politics, we own the stadium. So it's a weird deal.
Right. Yeah.
Transformation, though.
Right. And a little side note here for Royal fans and baseball fans. I mean, 1969, Kansas City came into the major leagues with, they were one of two new American League teams, and there were two National League teams. So just a few years before that, Kansas City was just a new major league franchise.
It really was. I mean, I went through. I grew up through the A's in Kansas City, and then after the '67 season, when it was announced they were going to Oakland, I think the whole city was kind of paralyzed at that point because my junior high school was on the south side of the stadium, and my senior high school on the west side of the stadium. But it sit up on a hill, so we could actually sit in our high school bleachers and look over into the stadium and watch games at the stadium at night, and it was kind of cool there. But I think that when Mr. K decided to buy the team, then everybody just got rejuvenated. The fans were allowed to name the team, and then it was it's been really a great run. It was a great run from say 76 to 85, 86. So I think we had a lot of winning in there, and a lot of playoff games, a couple World Series appearances, one championship. So hit on hard times. The team just hasn't been as productive as you would like to see them. I think in the last 16 years now, we've only had 3 winning seasons. So we're trying to really encourage ownership to invest more in players. I kind of see our city being similar to Milwaukee and Cincinnati, and I figure if they can compete every year, then I think it's time for the Royals to get back to their winning ways. And they know this fans. If you go back to 2015, you can see the fans are just overjoyed about the Royals and love the Royals, and they love winning. And I think they really are always in support of the team.
Yes, and the other thing is you came up June of '73, but then one of your longtime teammates and you guys set a record here with playing 1,914 games together, because later on in '73 there was a third baseman, number 5, and number 5 George Brett, and number 20 Frank White there of second base. You guys were long time teammates there starting in '73.
Well, that's true. We started in the minor leagues together, and I came up a few weeks ahead of George, and Freddie pulled a hamstring muscle, and I came up to play shortstop, and then I stayed there for a little while, playing a little bit of second base and a little bit of third, and while I was there, I said to myself, hey, I need to learn how to play second base, because Cookie was older than Freddie, and I said, I'm going to go back and learn how to play second base, and that's how I switched from shortstop, because I came up as a shortstop. Okay. But you know how it is. You're trying to figure out what can I do to stay. You don't want to go back to the minor leagues anyway. Right. And so I went to winter ball and a couple like 2 years in Venezuela, 1 year in Puerto Rico. And then when Cookie retired at the end of the '76 season, then I was ready to play. But I always teased George, well, people come up and say, hey, you play with George Brett. I said, no, George played with me. I came first.
And to piggyback on what you were just talking about with winning ways there when you guys were coming up. I mean, Jack McKeon, Whitey Herzog, Jim Fry, and Dick Hauser. Just some. I mean, Whitey Herzog definitely was on the other side there in '85, but definitely some great managers there coming through coaching the Royals.
Well, we did. When I came in, Jack McKeon was my manager, and between Jack and Whitey and Jim Fry and Dick Hauser, they really were managers that let you go out and play. They didn't micromanage. They just say go Whitey would say, "Hey, just go play the game." He said, "If you haven't caught up by the seventh inning, it's my game. So whatever I ask you to do, you do it." And he said, "As long as you make good decisions, you never hear from me." And he and Jack McKeon both for young players were great managers. And when Dick came in at 81, then Dick was a great manager of managing veteran guys because he coming from the Yankees and they didn't really have a lot of young players. It was all about guys ready to play. And so my career really didn't take off until I started playing for Dick Howser because he gave me a chance to be more than just an eighth place hitter, the ninth place hitter. When George got hurt in 73 and he was going to be out for a while, then Dick moved me to third. And I just started having success right away. I mean, I think I drove in runs in 11 straight games and 13 of my first 15 games. And I went on to be player of the year that year. And then the next year was batting more third, fourth, fifth. And really in 85, I hit 22 home runs in 85. And then I come into his office before we start the World Series. And he said, "Hey, you're batting fourth in the World Series." I said, "Oh, you got to be out of your mind." I said, "I'm not going to do that." I said, "Well, let George bat fourth. I'll bat third." And he said, "Well, why do you want to do that?" I said, "Because if Willie comes up, if Willie gets in scoring position in the first inning, and I come to the plate, then Whitey's going to pitch to me.
Right.
But you come up in the third spot, he's going to pitch around you to pitch to me." So, but George didn't want to move, and so I told Dick, I said, "Listen," I said, "I'll hit fourth, but they're gonna say one or two things. They're gonna say I should have never been there in the first place, or if I do well, they'll say it was a great move on your part." But it really turned out to be a great opportunity for me. I was able to lead the series in RBI, and I was able to hit one of my childhood dreams of hitting a home run in the World Series. And I found out after the series was over, I found out there were only 2 second basemen in the history of baseball that batted fourth in all 7 games of a World Series, and Jackie Robinson was the other person.
Oh, wow.
So it turned out to be a great for me.
Yes, and the 85 playoffs, that was the first year that the championship series went from best of 5 to best of 7.
Yes.
You guys beat the Blue Jays, and then there in the World Series, I mean, not only did you guys win, but playing the St. Louis Cardinals, not too far there from Kansas City.
Well, I think that team that we had gets very little credit, very little play on the baseball stage of how good we really were.
Yeah.
And I only say that because in the playoffs, we came back from 3-1 down.
Right.
And in the World Series, we came back from 3-1 down. So nobody really talks about that. But that would, to me, showed how great our players were, what kind of character we had. And for our ability to pull that off twice in the same year was pretty impressive, especially against a great Blue Jays team. And also a great Cardinal team. So it was a really good, big feather in our cap, I think, that nobody really remembers or even talks about.
Right, and just talk about. I mean, here you're sharing how you grew up, by the old stadium. You worked in the wintertime, the new stadium. I mean, so just talk about how there in '85 being part of the Royals World Series champion. I mean, just how that felt here with what your personal experience of right there in Kansas City is all about.
Well, I mean, it's an experience that I think each player has a different emotional approach to it. I think that with me, it was more about just it's about the fans. It's about, because I grew up here in Kansas City, and you go through those heartbreaking defeats against 3 in a row against the Yankees, and finally you break through in '80. You go to a World Series, but you lose a 6-game World Series to the Phillies, and everybody's just praying for another opportunity, because that first time is always difficult, but you have a better idea of how to approach it the second time, and to be able to take that on. Take your family, your friends, your city, your fans. Everything's on you to to win this game. Everybody for that short period of time is pulling the rope in the same direction. They want you to win.
Right.
And when you win, it's such a big relief that you've been able to pull that off and make so many people happy. And at the same time, you accomplish your dream of being a world champion, because that's why we put the uniform on. And to be able to do that and be able to do it in such a fashion that we did it makes it even more special. But being a world champion is pretty awesome feeling.
Right. And I also know that you were a 5-time All-Star, and there with 86, you had the opportunity of going yard against Mike Scott and proving out to be the game winner as the American League won there 3-2.
Yeah, I'm still wondering why Roger Clemens got the MVP of that All-Star. he pitched the first three innings of the game and he was done. But he's from Houston, so I said, well, he must have had it. But in that All-Star game, all the runs were driven in by second baseman. Steve Sachs drove in the runs for the National League, and myself and Lou Whitaker for the American League. But it was really kind of odd. I came off the bench to pinch hit, and Cal Ripken and Jesse Barfield, they hit before me, and that's when Mike Scott had the so-called split finger fastball that turned out to be something else later. And so he struck both of those guys out. And so Jesse walks by me. He says, "Good luck." Because they didn't foul the ball off. I said, "Oh, my God." And so when I went up there, the first two pitches he threw me, it just seemed they just disappeared. I swung and missed both. I said, "Man, this is crazy." And you got 35,000 people in Houston standing, cheering. And then I said, well, my only hope here is that he tries to – back in those days when they go 0-2, they like to try to come inside and knock you off the plate. And I said, so I'm hoping he'll come inside with a fastball. I'm going to look for it. And if he throws anything different, then I'm done. So he tries to get a fastball inside, didn't quite get it there, and I hit a home run. Wow. And so it's just amazing to hear 35,000 screaming people just go quiet all of a sudden. it was good. And everybody talks about how difficult it was to hit a home run in the Astrodome back in those days, but it's one of the longest home runs I ever hit. It was really fun, and so I was able to hit a 2-run homer there, put us ahead, and we ended up winning by 1. Right. And I'm still wondering why I didn't get the MVP of
that. Yeah, and then I see that after you were done playing, I saw that you had a couple of assignments here with being assistant coaches with Boston Red Sox for a few years, and then you came back there from 97 to 01 and was an assistant coach there with the Royals.
Well, I enjoyed it. When I left the game, I took a year off, and Boston asked me to come and manage a AAA team. But I didn't think I was ready to go that high because it was my first time. So I opted to go to rookie ball. And so my first year, I managed rookie ball. And then after that, they brought me to the major leagues to coach first base. And I left there after the 96 season, came here to Kansas City. And then after Bob Boone was fired, then they asked me to come back and coach. So I coached on the field for 3 or 4 years. And then after that, went to the front office for a few years. And then I decided that I wanted to manage. And then I went back to AA, and I managed there from 04, 05, and 06. Had some really good players. 06, I had pretty much all of our number 1 draft choices that year. I had Alex Gordon and Billy Butler, and Zach Greinke was there, Luke Hochevar. So I had we ended up going to the playoffs. We lost a 5-game playoffs to Houston back in those days, but I really enjoyed that a lot. And my goal was to manage in the major leagues. But after I got one interview right before we hired Trey Hillman. And then after that, then I went into broadcasting and I did the analyst job for 3 or 4 years. And then after that, then I decided it was time to make some other moves. So I decided to go into politics.
Okay. All right. Well, hey, Frank, definitely appreciate your time. And then, here we talked about the old stadium, talk about Kauffman Stadium, yes. But not too far from the baseball stadium is Arrowhead. And
yes,
this interview here is just a few weeks here after the Chiefs won another Super Bowl. So the city still embracing winning here with the Chiefs.
Still buzzing. I mean, it's been an amazing run that they've been on the last 5 years, and Andy Reid is such a good strategist. He working with Eric Bieniemy, just calling plays, and Patrick Mahomes is just phenomenal. I mean, I don't think we'll ever see a more innovative. I mean, a guy with such great feel in the pocket. He knows when to move, and he sees the whole field. I mean, he could be going to his right and throw the ball straight back to his left, or if you got a big lineman in front of him, he could drop his arm down and at different angles and throw the ball. And just amazing to watch him run a ball game. A guy that never quits. You can see him on the sideline. He's always motivating his linemen, congratulating his receivers. I mean, he just keeps things going all the time. And to watch him in that game in the Super Bowl and watch how the first half ended and watch how they came out the second half and how they played the second half with 6 rookies in the lineup, it was amazing. They were able to pull that one off.
Yes, and with starting this interview, I shared how I live in the Norfolk area and have lived here since '87. So they're in the mid to late '90s. They had a reliever with the Tides being affiliated with the Mets. They had a reliever by the name of Pat Mahomes, the dad, that was between the Mets and the Tides.
Yeah.
And just seeing now the success that his son has been having here in the NFL, it's good to see.
It really is, and I never had the opportunity to see him with a baseball glove on his hand or a baseball bat in his hand. But everyone says he was a good baseball player. But I think anything that he would have hoped to have done in baseball would not compare to what he's done in football. he's the first real superstar that we've had here in quite a while, and I think that everybody loves him, and he's a good family guy. He's turned out to be a pretty good entrepreneur also. I mean, he owns part of the Royals. He owns part of the new current women's soccer team, and he brought Whataburger to Kansas City, and everybody's happy about that. but I mean, he's just been able to really just extend himself in so many positive ways for our community, and he's just been a great selling point for our football team because he's every bit the person and the player that everybody thinks he is.
Yes. Well, hey, Frank, appreciate your time. And through my brother, Mike Ragsdale, I've been able to have Dayton Moore and JJ Picola and Matt Quintrero come on and now you. So, my wife and I were going to start following the Royals.
Well, I think that's a good thing. I think you'll probably know ins and outs of the organization, and I really believe that anytime you make a change and they bring in a new manager, you hope that new manager is bringing in a win first mentality. Whether you're developing or not, I think that your focus should always be on winning, and not let developing be an excuse for losing. I think that is. Always been Kansas City's always been a winner, and I can from '69 when they first came in, you think they finished last a few times, but the Royals started in '69, but they never finished last in their division until '95, right. And they never lost 100 games in a season until 2000. So it's been a very, very successful franchise and a winning franchise, and the fans have shown the team that you give us a winner, you give us somebody, and really you're not really just saying, Rags, that you need to win the division. You need to be in the playoffs. Basically, what you're saying is compete. Right. Give us something to be excited about. And I think that's how you start building it, just like they did in 14 and went to the World Series, and then 15 you win the World Series. But being able to sustain it over a number of years where you're going to compete every year, I think that's what's important.
Yes, and what's just kind of, about the Royals run is, yes, you guys had success, and then after 85, and then, 14 won the pennant, fell short there in the World Series, but they got right back to it. They're in 15 and was back on top with beating the Mets.
Well, and that's true. That was similar to the run that we had. We were in the playoffs in 76, 77, 78. 80, 81, 84, 85. But there was a little window in there between 80 and 85. So in 84, we brought up our young guns like Brett Saberhagen and Danny Jackson and Bud Black and those guys. And we had a fairly veteran team behind them. And so we went to the playoffs in 84 and lost a 3-game playoff to the Tigers. Nice. And then we came back and won the World Series in 85. So, but since then, it's been a struggle to, similar to 14 and 15, it's just been a struggle to maintain that competitive team on a year-to-year basis. And I think that's what gets fans excited about spring training. It gets you excited about opening day, is that at least you know you got a team that can compete. And I think that's what fans like. I think when you come out the door saying we're going to develop, and in a lot of people's mind, that means you're going to lose. So I don't mind developing, but I think winning every game should always be at the top of your thoughts every day, and not just, okay, we're going to lose today because of this, we're going to lose today because of that. No, we want to win today because of that, and then let the scoreboard tell you where you are.
Oh, yes. Well, hey, Frank, appreciate your time, and thanks again. And here in 2023, go Royals.
Hey, got to go, Rags. You got to be faithful.
Yes,
we'll let the scoreboard tell us how we're doing, but
right.
But spring training, everybody's hopefully eternal in spring training. So everybody goes to spring training with a winning attitude, and at opening day, everybody likes to hear their name called on the line at opening day, and hope they can take that and move that forward into a very competitive season.
Right. Yes. Well, all right, fans. So that's here's a wrap here with episode 12, and talk Royals baseball and number 20's career, Frank White, with us today. So thanks again.
No, thank you, Rags. I appreciate it.
Okay. All right.